What is going on, everybody? I just wanted to make a video here and go over my kind of recap of all the games that we saw this weekend in college football. Um, wasn't really exciting, to be honest. We had a very low scoring, kind of boring game, and then we had really two blowouts. I know JMU and Oregon seemed kind of close on paper, scoring 34 points, but we'll get into that in a minute. Wasn't the best weekend, but at the very least, we do have some very, very good quarterfinal matchups that I am very excited for. So we'll get into that. I want to start with Alabama and their win over Oklahoma. Completely outclassed Oklahoma. And based on the first quarter alone, you'd say that, well, Oklahoma is just going to run away with this game. And I'll be honest, I thought the same thing. Alabama just came out looking flat and they just couldn't really do anything. And 17-0 hole is not easy to get out of when you're playing quality opponents on the road. um, I use the word outclasses though because I genuinely believe that Kalen DeBoer has built a culture there at Alabama that prioritizes, slow it down and just do what you got to do. The one play at a time mentality. um, you're down 17-0, but it's still early. Kudos to him for being able to tap into the competitive nature of his players and remind them, like, hey, this game ain't over yet. It's not over yet. We're still in this game. It's one play at a time. And they bought in. They've bought into the culture there that he's built. And, I think it's easy to see why Kalen DeBoer was probably number one choice for Michigan. Um, Oklahoma, though, on the flip side, how do you give that up? How do you give that up? Your defense was clicking, and even on some of the drives when Alabama was scoring, they still looked kind of flat. It looked like they were moving the ball, but like really struggling to do it. Like everything was hard for them in the first half. Everything, even when things went their way, it just looked hard. Oklahoma just looked better prepared. They looked tougher. They looked like all these things, but you see John Mateer, throws a bad pick six, very bad. I'm assuming it was just miscommunication with the wide receiver, just running the wrong route, but it was jumped perfectly, and that really was the snowball effect for Alabama. Um, I just think that Brett Venables got outcoached, plain and simple. I think Kalen DeBoer, you know, there was a lot of gauging early in the game, seeing what Oklahoma's got, what they're going to do. Um, and they just, credit to Alabama's offensive play callers as well. They called the right plays when they had to. I picked Alabama to win this game, not not even because I mean, yes, I think they're a better overall team, but when you look at the first matchup between these two schools, uh, Alabama lost by 2 points, but while being, they lost a turnover battle by three. I knew going into this game that, like, Oklahoma might do the small things or the fundamental things right the most often, but Alabama's a better team, plain and simple. Excuse me. Um, I knew that if Alabama just simply took care of the ball, they were going to win this game straight up. I mean, it's cliche and it's obviously true that the team that turns the ball over the least amount of times typically wins anyway. So I mean that's an easy kind of cop out piece of analysis, but Alabama in particular, like that's the only reason they lost the first time. They are a better team than Oklahoma, and I know that a lot of people were turned off by their very poor performance against Georgia in the SEC title game, but Kalen DeBoer has his team, doing what they got to do. So I'm gonna give him credit with that. So Alabama advances to play now Indiana, where one of the most intriguing matchups for me in this whole weekend. I said it in a kind of short narrated preview video. Yeah, this is like the bluest of blue bloods versus the shiny new toy. Indiana's been top dog all year. I do expect Indiana to win the game, but Alabama to me has the best chance of being one of those lower seeded teams that makes a run. Kind of like how Ohio State was last year with being the eighth seed and ended up winning it all. Um, Alabama has that pedigree. They have that DNA, and they have the coaches. I do believe that Kalen DeBoer is a championship level coach. That is his ceiling, in my opinion. Um, Ty Simpson is also a very, very good quarterback. He had a very efficient game. I mean, it was 18 of 26, I believe, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. That's going to get the job done. And Oklahoma pissed down their leg. I think they ran into a couple of problems, and then it was just a snowball effect. They were able to score a touchdown late, but it didn't even matter. Um, the gutsy win by Alabama outclassed them and did not allow a 17-0 deficit to rattle them. So kudos to the Alabama Crimson Tide. Transition to Miami versus Texas A&M. um, this game went the complete opposite of what I was expecting. I've watched these teams a decent amount this year, not every week, but from what I've seen, they have good defenses, but they're explosive offenses. Like they can score on anybody. I knew that Miami had a better team or a better defense, excuse me, than A&M, I think. So I did kind of like I wanted to pick A&M in this game. My gut was telling me Miami would win. I don't know why. I had no analysis for why I thought Miami would win this game. They obviously did. 10-3 is crazy though. It's the best that either of these teams have looked all year on defense. All year. A large handful of games that I've seen Texas A&M play in this year, they gave up a lot of points. They scored a lot of points, but they also gave up a lot of points. They gave up a lot of points to Notre Dame. They gave up a lot of points to South Carolina. So kudos to them. I mean, they were only really able to generate one really successful drive on offense, and it was the last one where where Marcel Reed threw a pick in the end zone. So Miami's defense came to play. They say the defense travels, and that game was a testament to that narrative. Um, one, excuse me, I gotta clear my throat here. Miami's going to now play Ohio State, and I'll be honest, I feel like Texas A&M would have been a more fun matchup to see, but I expect this game with Miami to be a barn burner to a degree. I think it's going to be one of those games where the final score might be kind of high, but if you watch the game, it was never really that high. Um, I'm thinking like 24-13 type of deal. I do expect Ohio State to bounce back from losing to Indiana. They're going to fix a lot of stuff, and they're going to have to because to be honest, from my vantage point, Miami actually is structured very similar to Indiana on defense. They have a really elite interior defensive line, and I think underrated defensive backs. Indiana has much better linebackers, I think, than Miami, but that D line for Miami are all pros. All of them are pros, and so I do expect Miami to get pressure on San often. Uh, and that might be the saving grace for the Hurricanes is the fact that Indiana may have given the blueprint on how to beat this Ohio State team, and I think Miami, if they can duplicate it to the best of their abilities, they're going to have a chance in this game. By no means am I not giving them a shot. I expect Ohio State to win it. I mean, I think everybody's expecting Ohio State to either win a title or at least go to the title. But would it be like the biggest, craziest upset we've ever seen? Not even close. This Miami team is talented. Um, I look back at their losses. I don't know how they lost to two unranked ACC opponents, but they did. Um, but it's a different team today than it was then. Offensively, I will say Miami does have some things that they might worry about. One thing I saw in this one in particular was that they kind of hyper fixated on getting particular guys the ball. Like they made a massive emphasis on like, hey, we got to get this guy the ball or that guy the ball in these scenarios. And I think A&M just sniffed it out early because I mean, when you try to feed specific guys that often, it makes it really easy to read. So I mean, that was I think Miami's offensive play calling was really bad, really bad. Their defensive coordinator should get a freaking edible arrangement or something. I don't know. I don't know why that's the first thing that came to mind, but it was. Um, so I'm excited for that one too. I do feel like all four of these quarterfinal matchups are going to be really fun. Miami and Ohio State will be fun. It'll be a defensive barn burner for the most part. I think Ohio State just pulls away late. Um, Probably like I think it's like 17-13, 17-10, something like that going into the fourth quarter, and then you're going to see Megatron 2.0 or somebody score late for him and just kind of pull it away. But I do think it'll be a tough competitive matchup. Um, A&M definitely has some work to do going forward. Aside from them having the best performance they've had all year on defense, Texas A&M is going to need to prioritize defense, plain and simple. Um, they've given up a lot of points to a lot of guys all year, but yeah, yeah. A&M, this game was kind of disappointing to me. Honestly, it was just I was expecting it to be a high scoring affair and exciting, and it just wasn't. Uh, Marcel Reed looked very bad, um, but so did Carson Beck. So I don't know. But I am excited for Miami versus Ohio State. It'll be a good game. Um, I'm not even going to get into Tulane and Ole Miss. It is what it is. Tulane should never have been there. Uh, as Blake Ruffino said on Ruffino and Joe's podcast, looks like Lane Kiffin's worth 4 points. That's about it. 41-10 and 45-10. It's just Tulane should never have been there. There's no other analysis to say it. So kudos to JMU at least for JMU was like the last team thrown in there, right? That everybody was kind of bitching about, but they actually put up a much better fight than Tulane did. So, but it kind of gets into the bigger, broader point that the G5 just simply should not participate in the CFP. They don't. They shouldn't. They don't have. There's no need. They aren't good enough. The CFP rules need to be changed. And excuse my dog in the background. It's bad for college football when teams with no real chance get an invite. We see massive upsets all the time in college football. We've seen like Bowling Green beat Florida and App State beat Michigan, and that's all fine and dandy. And you can point to those if you want and say, well, see, these FCS or G5 schools, like they beat big schools all the time. But they're not good enough to consistently do that. If teams play 10 times, that FCS or G5 school might win once, but then the other 9 times they're going to get their belt to ass. So it is bad for college football because who could have made a run in these playoffs? Notre Dame, Vanderbilt, BYU. Sound familiar? All the same teams that we were all kind of complaining about. I don't know. I mean, I think when they wrote the CFP rules saying like the five highest ranked conference champions, I think they were banking on the ACC not being a dumpster fire, and that was really the nail in the coffin for this particular playoff was the ACC champion was 8-5, despite Miami being 10-2. I really genuinely believe that if you're going to insist on having conference titles where champions get like auto bids, um, I think that the overall record should play a part in who goes to conference titles also. I don't think it should just be your conference record, because Duke may have had a better conference record than Miami, but does anybody actually think that Duke is a better team than Miami? No, obviously not, especially since one of those wins for Miami was Notre Dame, and Duke didn't have a single win that of that quality all year. Hell, they lost to UConn. Like, so I understand the idea that like a conference title game is, based on your conference wins. I get it, but this is how positive change occurs, though, in the future for anything. Positive change happens really for the most part when, you know, injustice in some way happens and it forces the hand of people who can make those changes to make those changes. Um, there's a lot of ways that you could rewrite the rules. Let's be honest. You got the Big Ten, you got the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12. I don't, I don't think anybody would be that upset if the Power Four was the FBS. Um, the Sun Belt and the MAC and Conference USA, like they don't need to participate in the FBS. The FBS pool can be shrunk immensely. Um, and all those other teams, for lack of a better word, you can say get demoted. Um, but there's nothing wrong with that. Just give them a G5 playoff. I don't think anybody. I think that'd be intriguing. And to be honest, you know, like I love FCS football. I'm not going to talk about FCS on here because it just doesn't really generate people's interest, for being honest. But I do love FCS football, and I do love kind of those lower mid-major programs like JMU or like a Louisiana Monroe, whatever, just because those schools still feel like college football, like the college football of old that we all love and kind of miss to a degree. It doesn't feel like pro football the way that the FBS does. I just feel like the CFP should just be between those four power conferences. Just realign them, make them as even as you can, and then make that the pool of teams eligible to make runs. Because this playoff to me had the potential to be the best one we've seen so far. Just hypothetically, just simply replace Tulane and JMU with Vanderbilt and Notre Dame, just as an example. That would be the most competitive and kind of fun um, bracket that I think we've seen so far, and we were robbed of that because of these piss poor CFP rules that people wrote in order to cater to the smaller schools bitching and moaning about not having a fair shot. But life isn't fair. All right, life isn't fair. You're not Alabama. You're not Ohio State. You're not LSU. You're not Notre Dame. All right. You are a lower mid major G5 school. You don't need to participate. You just don't. It's as simple as that. The rules need to change because it is bad for college football. And it's just nobody wants to see that. I said in kind of a rant video that like nobody wants to see freaking JMU lose by 30 points. Now, granted, they put up 34 points, but they put up 34 points on Oregon's backups. Like, let's be honest. There was never a time in that game, not one time was Oregon in any real danger of losing. Not once. Not once. In fact, Oregon's starters gave up 7. All right. It's the backups gave up 27. I'm going to give JMU their flowers, all right? Like from a competitive standpoint, kudos. You didn't give up. You kept fighting. You showed a lot of integrity and character, right? But I'm sorry, Dukes. You shouldn't have been there. Green Wave, you definitely shouldn't have been there. I don't know what the hell that performance was. Like it's the same exact game. That Tulane Ole Miss game was was the same exact freaking outcome. So I don't know. Um, I think it would be kind of fun to transition into the idea here, because while these games were going on, Kenny Dillingham signed a extension with Arizona State, And so, as a Michigan fan, I'm obviously going to talk about this for at least a little bit. Um, Michigan has now lost out on their really top three choices. Um, the rumor that I'm seeing online is that Jed Fish didn't like pass his background check. Um, Nothing egregious, nothing like really bad or illegal or anything like that. But I guess there was something in the background check that turned Michigan off to hiring him. So I was like, okay, I'm curious to see what that is. But with Kalen DeBoer winning, he's obviously staying in Alabama. Um, I still think there was a chance had they lost to Oklahoma, but and now Dillingham re-signs with Arizona State. I think his heart wants to stay there, and I think he's just following his heart rather than his financial brain, and that's perfectly fine. He's making great money there anyway. He's making more wealth than most of us will ever make in our lives. So, um, sorry. So, where does Michigan go from here? You know, Alabama winning puts a damper on things in that regard. Kyle Whittingham, maybe. Uh, you know, I thought Kyle Whittingham retired, but apparently the school just thought it was time to move on from him, which is a little shocking because he still seems spry and spirited, and I know he's still a good coach. He's one of I'm pretty sure he's one of um, Urban Meyer's guys, like from that Urban Meyer tree. Um, if he's said that he still has like that fire to coach, and so I'm like, well, why not Kyle Whittingham? I don't know who all Michigan has reached out to. I'm assuming they've reached out to anyone and everyone who has you know any amount of respectability. Um, so I would expect them to at least inquire about him. But I think he'd be a decent option. But I'll be honest with you, I'm leaning towards Biff Poggi for like 1 year. Just give it to Biff for a year. I know Michigan fans. I know I'm with you that Biff is a failed college coach. He did absolutely horrendous at Charlotte, but he's a really really good person, and he would do a very good job of helping fix Michigan's image a bit. He's respected not just at Michigan. He's respected everywhere that he has been. Every coach that he's interacted with. Nick Saban has spoke highly of him. You know, this is a guy who, he's taking up that mantle. He doesn't have to be here. He doesn't have to be at Michigan. This man is um, financial financial expert, if you will. He's independently wealthy already. He's doing this for the love of the game and for the love of these players. He loves these players. These players are literally like his kids. I mean, look at his just watch him in press conferences. Look up his Twitter. His I don't have it in front of me, but like his Twitter bio is like, I love God and I love these players. And it's like he's just a good person, man. And I get it. Like this is the business. We're in the business of winning football games, and that's the long-term goal. But I've said this before: the short-term goal needs to be just get the right human beings in that building. That building has lacked good human beings. Just give him 1 year. What's the harm? These players love him and respect him. These coaches respect him. Just give him 1 year. If they go 6-6, 5-7, so be it. But if 5-7 or 6-6 is what it takes for 1 year in the short term to rebuild a culture, then go for it, and then try again next coaching cycle. Um, we've missed out on all the biggest names right now, so just give it to Biff. That's my opinion. And honestly, I'm not stressing about it. I'm really not. I'm going with the flow. Going with the flow. I'm going to enjoy the ride because it's only up from here for Michigan, in my opinion. I mean, I can knock on wood. My fake composite wood here. Knock on wood. It can only go up from here. We've had some bad guys in this building, and he's not a bad guy. He's the opposite of a bad guy. He's a tremendous human being. So, for his sake too, I would be excited for him to have that opportunity. Um, shit, man, you never know. I mean, that offense looked really good when he was the interim this season. You never know how loose they play. Maybe they go 9-3 next year with him. Who knows? Um, but yeah, that's I'm probably gonna end it there. Um, it's not. I wouldn't say it was an exciting weekend of football, but we're in for a very exciting quarterfinal round. So that I'm very excited for. Miami versus Ohio State, Alabama versus Indiana, uh, Oregon versus Texas Tech, which might be the most exciting game of these playoffs. I'm really looking forward to that one. And then Georgia Ole Miss, and you get another rematch. Gotta love these SEC rematches, right? So we will see what happens in that quarterfinal round, and when we see what happens, you'll hear from me again because that's just what I do now. Talk ball and live life. And with that said, peace.